Okay, so I'm excited to say that my last video has received some positive reception. I mean, it currently only has like 40-something views, but there's still 4 likes, which means the people who actually watched it liked it. So, with that said, I decided to make 2 more reviews. That's right, 2. Because after I've reviewed this episode, a very good episode, I'm going to review an episode, in my opinion, that's an awful, awful episode. The 2 episodes I'm reviewing are Season 3, Episode 44A, Nasty Patty, and Season 5, Episode 87A, To Love a Patty. Now, one of my good friends suggested I review Nasty Patty, and I already wanted to review To Love a Patty. So it spawned this idea in my head that I make 2 separate reviews for each episode. I'm not going to be completely comparing these episodes as they're totally different from each other plot-wise, but they do both surround a nasty patty, so there may be some comparisons to be drawn once I've seen both episodes. Anyways, getting into Nasty Patty. There's something I can't seem to ignore while watching this episode. Every time I see it, the main thing I think about while watching is Emp Lemon's YouTube poop, Mr. Krabs' Unquenchable Bloodlust. If you haven't already seen it, I highly recommend it, as it's been re-uploaded by someone and should still be up on YouTube as of the time I'm recording this, but yeah. My one friend and I constantly watched this on our Chromebooks in high school during lunch, and we still quote it to this day. This quote specifically always comes to mind when watching Nasty Patty.
We've got to do everything in our power to kill him.
I swear to you, I cannot unhear that. Like, I always end up thinking he's gonna say, we've got to do everything in our power to kill him. But that's obviously not what he actually says. Anyways, let me give a quick rundown of the plot of this episode before I get into my little rant about why I love it so much. A health inspector comes to the Krusty Krab. Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob try their best to please him until they see a news report saying that there's a fake health inspector on the loose, doing this in order to obtain free food. In light of this, thinking that their health inspector is the fake one, they make him this rancid Krabby Patty that seemingly kills him. Thinking they've just murdered a guy, more shenanigans ensue. So, I know you're all already thinking this, but this is a really dark premise for a SpongeBob episode. Like, this is some pretty mature themes for a kid's cartoon, but they somehow got away with it, and I love it. So, anyways, it starts as a normal day at the Krusty Krab when a health inspector pulls up. Mr. Krabs can immediately smell this guy from his office, somehow knowing it's a health inspector because, I don't know, he has health inspector senses or something. Anyways, Mr. Krabs is immediately telling SpongeBob to do everything he can in order to get this health inspector to pass the Krusty Krab. It's noteworthy how desperate Mr. Krabs seems to get the place passed, almost as if he knows the restaurant isn't necessarily up to code. So, after giving this health inspector the feast of his life, they see this news report on the TV.
We interrupt this can-can for a special news bulletin. Be on the lookout for a man who's been passing himself off as a health inspector in order to obtain free food. That's all for now.
Love how Mr. Krabs says free food right after this. Maybe because of Emp Lemon's YouTube poop, I don't know, but it's really funny to me the way he says it. Now, the fact that after this, the first thing Mr. Krabs thinks to do is to essentially give this guy food poisoning with a rancid patty, without even knowing whether this guy is the real deal or not. This is so fucked up. He could have easily went to the guy, politely asked him whether he was real or not. Like, what? Then, what Mr. Krabs says here is just, I don't know, the clip speaks for itself.
Join me, boy, or you're fired.
Well, that says a lot about Mr. Krabs, not just as a person, but as a boss. Anyways, they put every kind of nasty substance they can find into this patty, feed it to him, and then laugh about it behind the window. I know SpongeBob is naive and just going along with what Mr. Krabs told him to do, so he's off the hook for the most part. But Mr. Krabs, he's literally laughing about a guy he practically poisoned. Then he says, "Look at him choke," and continues laughing about it. And then he says this.
Oh, look at him suffer!
Cancelled. Anyways, after the health inspector chokes on a fly, slips on the nasty patty, knocks his head on the table, and passes out, SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs come to the conclusion that the dude is dead. And the news shows them who the actual fake health inspector is, so they realize that their health inspector is not the guy.
You are not the guy. You're not capable of being the guy. I had a guy, but now I don't. You are not the guy.
So what's Mr. Krabs' reaction to this? To blame it on SpongeBob, essentially gaslighting him into believing the whole thing was his fault. Excuse me? Mr. Krabs canceled. Not because he's a greedy capitalist or anything. That's a whole nother discussion I'm not getting into right now. So after blaming SpongeBob for his crime, Mr. Krabs decides he and SpongeBob better get to burying the body before anyone sees it. Now, SpongeBob is obviously really freaked out by the whole situation, even complaining how gross the corpse is when he has to drag it up a hill. Mr. Krabs is really rude to SpongeBob, yelling, "Get diggin'!" and at him, then getting mad, asking him what's the holdup when SpongeBob encounters a rock. When SpongeBob throws the rock, it's worth noting that you can see the health inspector waking up right before the rock hits him in the head, knocking him out again. So SpongeBob finishes burying the guy, and the two of them give their goodbyes. Mr. Krabs' little goodbye is really brief and just really unsentimental in general, while SpongeBob literally starts crying over the guy, shouting, "Why? Why?" Which is really funny and shows how different their reactions are to the whole situation, giving a great insight into these two characters' personalities. Another thing worth noting is what Mr. Krabs says right here.
Listen here, you little barnacle. No one, and I mean no one, can ever know about this. It'll be the end of you, it'll be the end of me, and worst of all, it'll be the end of me.
Now let me just say, Mr. Krabs is still being extremely rude to SpongeBob, even saying, "Listen here, you little barnacle," a bad word in the realm of SpongeBob. Then he says it'll be the end of both of them, but then repeats that it'll be the end of himself, emphasizing how important his own reputation is to him as a business owner. Then some cops pull up to the scene, scaring the living shit out of both SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs, but especially SpongeBob. The cops just want Krabby Patties, so Mr. Krabs hops in while SpongeBob takes care of the body that has now slid all the way down the hill and directly in front of the police car. So there they go, off to the Krusty Krab, in a cop car, with a fucking body in the trunk. What a mood this scene sets. Especially how they change the Krusty Krab sign to have neon lights, which obviously was never there before, but they just include it here to enhance the dark setting of this half of the episode. I love the vibe this gives off, and it's a nice homage to, like, I don't know, dramas or something. I don't know. I just know that, like, neon lights is, like, a thing. Like, it's, like, a common trope in, like, murder mystery type stuff. I don't know. Anywho, when they get to the Krusty Krab, SpongeBob goes around back with the body, only to realize the door's locked. So he has to come around front with the body hidden hilariously under his hat. And these cops, while they do start to question the nervous nature of SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs, are completely oblivious to what the hell is going on with these two. It's so funny that they don't even question SpongeBob's engorged hat. Like, yeah, that's nothing. No need to wonder what that's all about. Now, the climax of this whole episode revolves around the police almost discovering this murder, and again, Mr. Krabs tries to blame the whole thing on SpongeBob until the actual health inspector comes in. Then the cops pretty much knock him out again in this hilarious scene.
You guys. Take that, you zombie!
I'll take it from here. Die, zombie!
Good police work, Officer Nancy.
So then, the health inspector explains that the Krusty Krabs is passed for inspection, and the episode ends on a happy note. Whew, what a goddamn episode that was. Don't get me wrong, it's a classic that I absolutely love, but that shit's straight up crazy. Bonkers, if you will. I didn't think I'd have that much to say about this episode going in, as I've seen it so many times, and it's hard to come up with things to say about an episode I already know is good. But after rewatching it, I realized that there was actually a lot for me to say about it, and a lot of interesting moments that really delve into the personalities of SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs, and how the two interact with each other. It's not super often that we see an episode surrounding SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs, so I appreciate seeing them together without any other characters involved. Also, may I ask, where the hell was Squidward the whole time? Was he just taking a sick day? Or did he just take off that day? I don't know. Alrighty, folks. I hope you enjoyed this little ramble, and I hope you have a spectacular day. Autobots roll out.